Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and click the bell so you don't miss any new stories. Let's get started. You ever wake up with a feeling you just can't shake? Like the air's heavier than usual, the silence louder than it should be? That's how I woke up that morning. Sunlight sliced through the blinds in thin lines, painting the room gold. But Jess wasn't in bed beside me. The side she always slept on was cold, untouched. Usually she'd be up before me, brewing coffee or getting Ethan ready for the day. But not this morning. I rubbed my eyes, grabbed my phone, and flicked it on. No texts, no missed calls, not a single message from Jess. That wasn't like her. She was always good about checking in, especially when she was out late. The house was too quiet. I stepped into the kitchen and spotted a folded note on the counter, her handwriting small and careful. Matt, I'm sorry. I needed to clear my head. I'll explain when I get back. Please don't worry. Clear her head? That wasn't Jess at all. She was steady, our anchor. I folded the note slowly, feeling something twist in my gut. Before I could think it through, the doorbell rang. At 7 in the morning. Who the hell could that be? I opened the door, and there was Carter, my best friend since college, the guy I trusted more than anyone. But his face was pale, tight, like he hadn't slept in days. Matt, he said, voice low and uneven. Can we talk? I stepped aside wordlessly and led him into the kitchen. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Did you know Jess was out last night? He asked suddenly. No, I said. She's always home by midnight. She'd text me if she was late. Carter swallowed hard. Matt, there's something I need to tell you about Jess and me. My heart slammed against my ribs. What do you mean? We made a mistake, Carter said, voice cracking. Jess and I, we slept together. The words hit me like a fist. My wife, my best friend, the two people I trusted most. It was one time, he added quickly. Last week. It wasn't planned. I swear I sank into a chair, breath catching in my throat. Why now? Because she left this morning, Carter said quietly. She said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. Asked me to be honest. The note, the silence, his confession, it all crashed down on me. Thanks for telling me, I said hoarsely. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, Matt. If you want me to leave, no, I interrupted. We need to figure this out. Together. Inside, I was breaking. The day stretched ahead, heavy and uncertain. I paced the living room, memories flooding me. The way Jess smiled, her laugh, how she looked when Ethan took his first steps. Had it all been a lie? I stared at my phone, her number blinking back at me. I wanted answers but feared what I'd hear. Carter sat silently on the couch, guilt written all over his face. The silence was thick. Finally, I asked, how did it happen? He looked up, eyes bloodshot. It started when you were out of town. Jess called me, upset. I tried to help her, and then one thing led to another. I clenched my fists. Why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed, scared. I didn't want to lose you. I exhaled slowly, the weight in my chest crushing but oddly clarifying. The betrayal stung like a knife, but the truth was something I had to face. I walked over to the window, watching the neighborhood wake up. Kids on bikes, dogs barking, life going on. And here I was, trying to hold together the pieces of a life I thought was unbreakable. Where is she now? I asked. Jess didn't say, just left. Said she needed space. I nodded slowly. I need to find her. Carter's face hardened. Matt, whatever happens, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, I said quietly, but this changes everything. And it did. I spent the next few hours sitting on the porch, staring out at the street like the answers might just roll by with the morning traffic. My mind kept circling back to that note. I needed to clear my head. What kind of head clearing sent Jess out in the middle of the night without a word? And then Carter's confession. Jess and Carter, together. One time, a mistake, a betrayal. My best friend. The words echoed in my head. I thought about Jess, about Carter, about Ethan. What was I supposed to do now? Let it tear me apart? Pretend nothing happened? I called Jess twice. No answer, no voicemail, just the cold ring of rejection. My heart twisted every time. By late morning, Carter was still here, sitting stiffly on the couch looking like a ghost. I didn't know whether to hate him or feel sorry for him. Part of me wanted to punch the wall. Another part felt sorry for the guy, trapped in a nightmare he created. Matt, Carter said suddenly, breaking the silence, you need to hear the whole story. I didn't want to hurt you, but it's complicated. I nodded, bitter and exhausted. I'm listening. He took a breath. You know, Jess and I have always been close. Maybe too close. We were there for each other when things got tough. Like when you slept with her? I interrupted. Yeah, he said quietly. It was after that fight you two had. She was upset, lonely. She called me late one night. I was there for her, and things got out of hand. My fists clenched. Did she want this, or was it just you? She was just as confused as I was, Carter said, looking down. Neither of us planned it. It was a terrible mistake. I closed my eyes, imagining Jess, my wife, my partner, confiding in Carter instead of me. Had she been holding all this inside? Did she even know what she wanted? I'm sorry, Matt. I know I broke your trust. I don't expect forgiveness. I looked at him, and despite everything, I saw the regret etched on his face. He wasn't a villain, just a man caught in a mess. Suddenly my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it, a photo. Jess sitting alone on a park bench, eyes distant. The caption, I'm sorry. My chest tightened. Where was she? What was she thinking? I stood up. I have to find her. Carter nodded. I'll help. Driving through the city, my mind raced with every possible scenario. Was she hurt? Angry? Was our marriage over? Would Ethan grow up without a mom? I felt like I was living someone else's life. We stopped near the park from the photo. The place was quiet, shaded by tall trees. And there she was. Jess, sitting on the bench, her face buried in her hands. I approached slowly, unsure if she'd want to see me. Jess, I said softly. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed but determined. Matt. For a moment, we just sat there, the tension thick between us. I didn't want to hurt you, she said finally. I never meant for any of this to happen. I nodded. I know. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was scared. I felt so lost. I didn't know how to tell you. I'm not sure what to say, I admitted, but I'm here. We need to talk. She looked at me, hope flickering behind the pain. I want to fight for us, I said, voice shaking, but I don't know if I can do this without the truth. She nodded, wiping her tears. I'll tell you everything. Back in the car, Jess told me everything. The loneliness, the doubts, the late-night calls with Carter that started as comfort and became something else. How she tried to hide it from me because she was scared to lose her family. I listened, hurt, angry, but mostly sad. When she finished, I looked at her and said, we have a long road ahead, but I want to try. For Ethan, Jess reached over, taking my hand. It was shaky but real. Thank you, Matt. That night, I lay awake in our bed, the empty side next to me a reminder of the day's revelations. Betrayal had cut deep, but so had honesty. The question was, could trust grow back from this? Tomorrow, I thought, we start figuring it out. Together. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Jess stayed with her sister, but we talked, endlessly, painfully, late into the night. Each conversation peeled back layers I didn't know were there. Doubts, loneliness, fear. She confessed she hadn't planned for anything to happen with Carter, that it was a moment of weakness, but the damage was done, and so was my trust. I kept replaying everything in my head. Jess's laugh, her touch, the way she looked at me before it all fell apart. Could I ever see her that way again? Carter, meanwhile, stayed mostly out of sight, but I kept getting texts from him, apologies, explanations, offers to help fix things. His guilt was almost as raw as mine. One evening, I met Carter at our favorite bar downtown. It felt strange sitting across from him, like we were strangers trying to patch a bridge on the verge of collapse. You hurt me, I said bluntly, but I don't hate you. Not entirely. He nodded. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. but I want to do whatever it takes to make it right. I took a deep breath. Jess is scared. I am too. But we have a son, Carter. I'm not ready to let this ruin everything. He met my eyes. Neither am I. That night driving home, I realized something I hadn't admitted before. Carter wasn't the enemy. The real enemy was the silence, the secrets, the things left unsaid. At home, Jess and I started couples therapy. The sessions were brutal. Raw emotions spilled out, accusations, tears, confessions. But for the first time, we were talking honestly. One session, our therapist asked, "What do you both want from this? What does your marriage mean to you?" Jess looked at me, her eyes wet but steady. "I want to fix this. For Matt, for Ethan, for us." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat big enough to choke on. Me too. But even as I said it, doubts gnawed at me. Could we really rebuild on a foundation cracked by betrayal? Then came the small things, the moments that mattered. Jess leaving little notes for me around the house. The way she smiled when Ethan ran into her arms after daycare. The nights we sat on the couch, just holding hands, no words needed. One Saturday, I found a photo album on the coffee table. New pictures of us, happier times. Jess caught me staring. "Trying to remind us what we have," she said softly. I nodded, feeling something fragile but real stirring inside me. Hope, but the past doesn't disappear that easily. One afternoon, I got a text from Carter. "We need to talk. It's important." My stomach clenched. We met at a quiet diner. Carter looked worn out. "There's something else," he said, voice low. "Something Jess hasn't told you." "What now?" I asked, already bracing for more pain. He hesitated. "It's complicated. I don't want to hurt you, but you deserve to know." I stared at him, heart pounding. What else could possibly be left? Later that night, I found Jess sitting on the porch steps, staring at the sky. "Matt," she said before I even spoke, "there's something I didn't tell you." My breath caught. "What?" She took a shaky breath. "Carter and I, it wasn't just once." The words hung in the air between us like a thundercloud ready to burst. "It wasn't just once." Jess's voice was barely a whisper, but it hit me like a slap. I could feel my world cracking at the seams again. I sat down beside her, the cool night air wrapping around us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear, anything but face this raw, unbearable truth. "How many times?" I finally asked, my voice rough. Jess's eyes filled with tears. "3. Over the past month, 3. The number echoed in my mind, each one a punch. 3 times she chose someone else over me, over us. I swallowed hard, trying to keep it together. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was ashamed. I didn't want to lose you," she said, voice breaking. "But I couldn't stop. I thought maybe I could fix things on my own." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. "And Carter?" Jess shook her head. "He wanted to stop. He did. But I was the one who kept reaching out." The bitter truth stung more than I expected. Jess had made a choice, repeatedly, and I'd been blind to it. I stood up, pacing the porch like a caged animal. "How am I supposed to trust you now?" She stood too, reaching for my hand. "I don't expect forgiveness yet. Just a chance." I looked down at her trembling fingers. Part of me still loved her, the woman who'd given me a son, who'd shared my life for years. But another part was so deeply wounded, it felt like it might never heal. The silence stretched. Finally, I said, "We need to decide what happens next. For Ethan, if nothing else." Jess nodded. "I agree." The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Jess and I tried to put on a brave face for Ethan, but beneath the surface, the tension was suffocating. Carter stayed away after our last conversation, but his presence lingered like a bad smell. One evening, Jess and I sat at the kitchen table, the silence between us thick enough to cut with a knife. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, eyes pleading. I reached across and squeezed her hand. "Neither do I, but we have to try. For our family." She nodded, a faint glimmer of hope in her eyes. Then came the unexpected. One afternoon, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. "Matt, it's Detective Reynolds." My heart sank. Detective? What's this about? There's been an incident involving Carter. I need to speak with you. What kind of incident? I asked, fear creeping in. We believe Carter has been involved in some illegal activities. We're investigating. You might have information that could help. My mind reeled. Carter, my best friend, mixed up in crime? It didn't add up. Of course I'll cooperate, I said, voice steady despite the chaos inside. That night I sat alone in the dark, trying to process everything. Jess was asleep upstairs, exhausted from the week's emotional roller coaster. The betrayal, the secrets, the police. Life had become a nightmare. But somewhere in the chaos I realized something. Maybe the cracks in our foundation were deeper than I thought. Maybe this wasn't just about infidelity. Maybe there was more beneath the surface. And I was going to find out. Detective Reynolds' call echoed in my head as I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. Carter involved in something illegal? It felt unreal. The same guy who'd confessed to sleeping with Jess, who was now the axis of my unraveling life, was apparently tangled in a mess far darker than infidelity. I didn't sleep well that night. My mind twisted with questions. What kind of trouble was Carter in? Was Jess aware? How deep did this go? And most painfully, could I trust anyone anymore? Morning light brought no relief. Jess was quiet, keeping her distance. I knew she was struggling with her own demons, but I was drowning in mine. The detective's words replayed, "You might have information that could help." I knew I had to talk to him. An hour later, I found myself in a sterile police office, the fluorescent lights harsh and unforgiving. Detective Reynolds was a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, his expression serious but not unkind. "Matt, thanks for coming in," he began. "We're investigating a series of financial frauds linked to Carter Hale. Suspicious transfers, offshore accounts, the works." I blinked. "Carter? That can't be right. I don't know, a guy who's always been straight with me." Reynolds leaned forward. "Sometimes the people closest to us hide the darkest secrets. We have reason to believe Carter's been using his friendship with you and Jess to cover his tracks." "Jess? What does she have to do with this?" I asked, heart pounding. "We don't know yet, but there's a pattern, and you may have seen or heard something unusual." I thought back. Late nights Carter showed up at the house, his nervous glances, whispered phone calls. I'd written it off as guilt over the affair. Maybe it was more. "I'm willing to help," I said, swallowing hard. "Good. We might need you to come in again." Driving home, my head spun. Carter wasn't just a cheater. He might be a criminal. It was like every part of my life was a lie. Jess was waiting on the porch when I pulled up. Her eyes met mine, tired but searching. "Any news?" she asked. I hesitated. "Detective Reynolds called. Carter's under investigation for fraud." Jess's face paled. "I had no idea." "I know," I said softly, "but we need to be careful." She nodded. "Matt, I want to come clean about something else." I raised an eyebrow. "What now?" She swallowed, then said, "Before all this happened, I found out I was pregnant again. I was scared to tell you." I stared at her, stunned. "Pregnant?" She nodded, tears brimming. "I didn't want to lose you, and I thought maybe if I kept it secret, things would get better." The news hit me like a freight train. Another child, a chance to rebuild, or maybe another complication. That night, Jess and I sat together, holding hands. The weight of our fractured past heavy, but the possibility of a future faintly glowing. "I don't know what's next," I admitted. "Me neither," she whispered. "But maybe we fight for the family we still have." I nodded, feeling both hope and dread tangled inside me. The road ahead was uncertain, dangerous even, but I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The weeks that followed were a blur of tension, whispers, and half-truths. Carter had vanished. No calls, no texts, just silence. Detective Reynolds checked in occasionally, piecing together a puzzle I didn't want to see fully. Jess and I were walking on eggshells, the fragile truce between us both a comfort and a reminder of how close we'd come to breaking for good. The pregnancy changed everything, but it also forced us to face what was really at stake. Ethan, the baby on the way, and the life we'd built, however cracked it was. One evening, as I put Ethan to bed, Jess joined me in the nursery. She brushed a stray curl from Ethan's forehead and smiled softly. "We'll get through this," she whispered. I nodded but wasn't so sure. The past wasn't done with us. The next morning, I found an envelope slipped under the front door. No name, no note, just a stack of photos and a USB drive. My heart raced as I picked it up. The photos showed Carter meeting with men I didn't recognize, exchanging briefcases, handing over thick envelopes. It looked like something out of a movie, secret deals under dim streetlights. I plugged the USB into my laptop and found videos. Carter counting stacks of cash, making phone calls with coded language. The deeper I dove, the darker it got. I called Detective Reynolds immediately, and he arranged to meet me that afternoon. At the station, Reynolds watched the footage closely. "This is the real Carter Hale," he said grimly. "Drug trafficking, money laundering, the works." I swallowed hard. Why involve me? Because he's using your family as cover. We think he might have used the affair to manipulate Jess, to keep you off balance. The pieces clicked into place. Carter's affair wasn't just a betrayal of friendship. It was a calculated move in a dangerous game. That night, I sat down with Jess. I showed her the photos and videos. Her face hardened with shock. Then something else. Fear. "Matt," she said quietly, "I didn't know the extent of it. Carter scared me. I didn't want you to get involved." I squeezed her hand. "We're in this together now." She nodded. "I'm sorry for everything. The cheating, the secrets. I was weak." "We all are," I said. "But now we have to be strong. For Ethan, for the baby." Days later, Detective Reynolds called. Carter had been arrested in a raid. As the news settled in, Jess and I finally began to breathe again. The external threat was gone, but the internal wounds remained. One night, as we sat on the couch, Jess leaned into me. "Do you think we can really move past this?" she asked. I looked at her, the woman I loved and the stranger who'd shattered my trust. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I want to try." She smiled faintly, hope flickering in her eyes. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like maybe we could find our way back. The air in our house felt different, lighter but still tinged with a fragile tension. Carter's arrest seemed to close a dark chapter, but the wounds he left behind weren't healing overnight. Jess and I tried to rebuild, stitch by careful stitch, but every glance, every silence reminded me of what could still unravel. Our baby was due in a few months, and that brought both hope and fear. I watched Jess carefully, her quiet moments, her tired smiles, and wondered how much of the pain she hid beneath. One evening after dinner, Jess curled up on the couch with a book. I joined her, letting my hand brush hers. She didn't pull away. "I'm scared, Matt," she admitted softly. "Scared I'll mess this up again." I shook my head. "We're both scared, but we have to be honest. No more secrets." She nodded, eyes shining. "Promise me." I promised. The following week, we attended our first therapy session since Carter's arrest. It was brutal. Old wounds reopened, new fears surfaced, but for the first time, we talked about our future, not just the past. Our therapist asked, "What would it take for you to truly trust again?" Jess looked at me. "Time, patience, proof," I nodded, "and a willingness to fight even when it hurts." At home, we set new rules. Phones left downstairs at night. No more hiding feelings. We talked more, fought less. But trust, I realized, wasn't something you could demand. It was earned, slowly, painfully. One afternoon, I found Jess staring at the baby's ultrasound pictures. She smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. "This little one," she said, "is our chance." I pulled her into a hug. "Our second chance." That night, as we lay in bed, Jess whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I kissed her forehead. "I love you, Jess. All of you." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I believed we might be okay. But beneath the fragile peace, a storm was brewing, one that would test everything we thought we'd survived. The fragile peace Jess and I had begun to rebuild started to feel like a house of cards, wobbling with every small breath of wind. The baby was growing inside her, a constant reminder of our future, but also of how far we'd fallen from what we once had. Some nights lying awake, I'd listen to the quiet hum of the baby monitor and wonder if silence could be dangerous, if all the things we didn't say were slowly poisoning us. Jess was quieter these days, not just from exhaustion or the pregnancy, but something deeper. The light in her eyes sometimes flickered out, replaced by shadows I couldn't reach. I wanted to ask, but feared the answers. One evening, after dinner, Jess was unusually distant. I caught her staring out the window, fingers fiddling with her wedding ring. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Jess, talk to me. What's going on?" She turned slowly, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't know how to explain it. I feel lost, like I'm drowning." My chest tightened. "Is this about us? The past?" She shook her head. "It's more than that. Sometimes I think Carter's part of it, but there's something else. Something I haven't told you." My heart pounded. "What haven't you told me?" She hesitated. "Before all this, before the affair, Carter showed me things. Things I didn't want to see. Things about himself, about his business. I was scared, Matt. I thought if I said something, he'd hurt me or worse." I felt a chill run down my spine. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered, "but I was trapped. I thought I could handle it alone." That night I lay awake thinking about Carter, the charming friend who'd been hiding darkness beneath the surface all along. Jess's silence wasn't just betrayal, it was fear, and that fear had kept us both prisoner. The next day I called Detective Reynolds. "Detective, I think Jess knows more about Carter's activities than we realized," I said. There was a pause. "If she's willing to talk, we need to hear her." Jess agreed to meet Reynolds at the station. I stayed close, a silent witness to the flood of secrets she finally unleashed. She told them about Carter's threats, the pressure he put on her to keep quiet, about how the affair wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was survival, a desperate attempt to protect herself and us. Detective Reynolds listened, taking notes. When Jess finished, he said, "This changes everything. We might have missed key pieces because of fear." Driving home, Jess was exhausted but relieved. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone. "I'm sorry for hiding this from you," she said. "I thought I was protecting you." I squeezed her hand. "We protect each other by being honest. No more secrets." But honesty came with its own dangers. That night as we slept, a car slowly rolled past our house. Headlights briefly illuminated the porch before disappearing into the darkness. I woke to a knot in my stomach. Jess was still asleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. The next morning, I found a note slipped under the door. "Stop digging." Fear crept back into our lives. Carter's shadow loomed larger than ever, and now it was clear we weren't safe. Jess wanted to leave town. I was torn. Stay and fight for what we had, or run and try to save what was left. "We can't hide forever," I told her. "I know," she said, tears threatening to fall, "but sometimes silence is the only way to survive." That night I sat alone in the living room, watching the flickering flames in the fireplace. Our marriage, our family, our future, they all felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter with the slightest touch. But one thing was clear, the silence between us was no longer an option. The note under the door wasn't just a warning, it was a threat, a clear message that someone was watching us and wanted us to stop asking questions. The paranoia settled in like a thick fog, making every creak in the house a potential danger. Jess and I started locking the doors earlier, double-checking windows, and even installed a security camera. But no matter what we did, the feeling of being hunted lingered, a dark cloud over our fragile attempts to heal. I tried to focus on work, on Jess, on the baby growing inside her, but my mind was always half elsewhere, spiraling into worst-case scenarios. One night, as I sat on the porch trying to catch my breath, Jess joined me, wrapping her arms around me. "We can't live like this," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but what choice do we have?" Days later, I got a call from Detective Reynolds. Carter had made a deal, turning state's evidence in exchange for a lighter sentence. That meant the people Carter had been involved with, the dangerous ones, were now looking for loose ends. Loose ends like Jess and me. "We have to be careful," Reynolds warned. "You're not just witnesses, you're targets." The tension in the house reached a breaking point. Jess snapped at the smallest things. I was impatient and on edge. Our fights, once rare, became daily battles. I saw the pain in her eyes, mirroring my own. One argument exploded over something trivial, but it opened a door to years of buried resentment. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" I yelled. "Because I was scared you'd hate me," she shot back. I ran my hands through my hair, exhausted. "I don't hate you, but I don't know who you are anymore." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm still the woman who loves you." That night, after Ethan was asleep, we sat on the floor of the nursery, surrounded by baby clothes and toys. "I want to believe we can get through this," Jess said quietly. "Me too," I replied, pulling her close. But fate had other plans. A week later, Jess didn't come home from work. My phone rang at midnight. Detective Reynolds on the line. "Matt, we found Jess. She's safe but shaken. Someone was following her." My heart stopped. Fear, relief, and anger collided inside me. I rushed to the hospital where Jess was being examined. She looked pale but alive, clutching my hand tightly. "They warned me to stop," she whispered. "But I can't, not now." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "We'll face this together." In the quiet hours of that night, I realized our fight wasn't just about betrayal or secrets. It was about survival. And no matter how broken we felt, we had to be stronger than the darkness chasing us. The sterile hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Jess lay on the bed, pale and trembling, her hand clutched tightly in mine. The nurse's quiet footsteps outside only reminded me how close we'd come to losing her. Detective Reynolds was waiting in the hallway when I stepped out, his face grave. "They didn't just scare her," he said quietly. "They meant to send a message. And they're not done." The weight of his words settled like concrete in my chest. Our quiet little world, the one I thought I could control, was crumbling fast. Jess recovered quickly, but the scars, both visible and invisible, lingered. We spent days talking, planning our next moves. It was clear we couldn't stay in the house, not with our son and the new baby on the way. "We have to leave," Jess said one evening, voice steady but tired. "Start fresh." I wanted to argue, to fight for the life we'd built, but deep down I knew she was right. Packing was chaotic. I watched as Jess folded Ethan's clothes, trying to keep the calm that had long since left our home. Our conversations were clipped, loaded with tension and unspoken fears. On the night we left, I looked back at the dark silhouette of the house, the place where our marriage had nearly died and somehow might be reborn. We drove without a plan, destination unknown. Jess slept in the passenger seat, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Ethan dozed in the back, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around his parents. Somewhere on a long stretch of highway, Jess woke and took my hand. "Matt, I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," I replied. "Me too." But fear wasn't the only thing I felt. There was something else simmering beneath the surface. Anger. Not just at Carter or those chasing us, but at myself for letting everything slip so far. The days turned into weeks. We moved from motel to motel, trying to stay ahead of the shadows. Detective Reynolds stayed in touch, warning us of new developments and reminding us to be vigilant. One afternoon, Jess and I sat on a motel bed, Ethan playing nearby. The weight of our new reality pressed down on us. "We can't run forever," I said. "No," Jess agreed, "but maybe we don't have to." She looked at me, eyes fierce. "We need to fight back." The idea scared me, but I saw the fire in her, the same fire that had drawn me to her years ago. Maybe after everything, we weren't done yet. A week later, I got a call from Reynolds. "Matt, I have a lead on the people behind Carter's network. It's risky, but it could end this." I swallowed hard. "I'm listening." The next few days would change everything. It was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming our lives. The plan Detective Reynolds laid out was dangerous, maybe the most dangerous thing I'd ever agreed to. But staying silent and running wasn't living. Jess and I had to fight, not just for ourselves, but for the family we still hoped to save. Reynolds arranged a meeting with an informant who claimed to have evidence on the cartel-like network Carter was tied to. It was a long shot, but it was our only shot. Jess and I sat in the rented car, the night cloaking us like a shield. Ethan was with a trusted friend, safe for the first time in weeks. The baby inside Jess kicked softly, a reminder of what we stood to lose. "I'm scared," Jess admitted, voice trembling. "Me too," I said, gripping her hand. "But we're not alone." The meeting was set in a quiet diner on the outskirts of town. Reynolds was already inside, eyes scanning the door. The informant arrived, a thin, nervous man named Luis. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything you need is here," Luis whispered. "Names, locations, bank accounts. The whole operation." Reynolds took the envelope, nodding. "This could bring them down." Luis looked at me. "Stay safe. They don't forgive." Driving back, my mind raced. Carter's lies had almost destroyed us. But now, with this evidence, we could end it. We could finally be free. Jess rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you think we'll make it?" I hoped so. The next days were a blur of meetings with Reynolds and his team, setting up the takedown. But the closer we got, the more I felt the weight of the past bearing down. One afternoon, Jess broke down. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "I'm tired, Matt. I don't want to lose you." I held her tight. "You're not losing me. We're in this together." Then came the raid. Police cars swarmed the warehouses, sirens piercing the night. I stayed with Jess, waiting, praying. Hours later, Reynolds called. "It's over. The network's busted. Carter's going away for a long time." Relief and exhaustion washed over me. Back home, we stood together in the quiet house. Our house. It was scarred, like us, but still standing. Jess smiled, tears shining. "We did it." I kissed her forehead. "We did." But as we embraced, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. Rebuilding trust and love from the ashes. The house felt different the day we returned. Quiet in a way that wasn't empty, but full of possibility. Boxes unpacked, rooms repainted, the scent of fresh paint mingling with the faint smell of rain outside. It was like a reset button pressed gently on our fractured lives. But inside me, the storm of memories, betrayals, and pains still raged, more tangled than ever. Jess and I had come so far, from the betrayal, the secrets, the fear, to this moment. Yet even as we unpacked the physical remnants of our old life, I knew we had to unpack the emotional baggage too. The lies Jess told, the affair with Carter, those wounds were raw and slow to heal. Still, the baby growing inside her was a beacon, a tangible symbol of hope and future. Our son Ethan was our anchor. Watching him explore the new backyard, chasing after butterflies with his little hands outstretched, I felt a surge of fierce protection I hadn't known I possessed. He deserved a family that was whole, or at least trying to be. Jess stood by the kitchen window, hands resting on her growing belly. She caught my eye and smiled, a little tentative, but genuine. I walked over and took her hand. "I know this isn't easy," I said softly, "for either of us." She nodded. "I want to make this work, Matt. For Ethan, for the baby, for us." Her voice cracked slightly and I squeezed her hand. "Me too." In the weeks that followed, we started couples therapy. The sessions peeled back layers of resentment, confusion, and hurt. We talked about everything: why she cheated, how I felt betrayed, and how fear and manipulation had clouded our judgment. The therapist guided us gently but firmly, making us face truths we'd buried too deep. One session, Jess confessed, "I didn't just cheat because of Carter. I was lonely. I felt invisible." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I was so focused on work, on being a provider, I didn't see you struggling." Tears streamed down her face. We lost ourselves. Slowly, we started rebuilding. There were no grand declarations, no Hollywood moments of forgiveness, just small acts. Jess making me coffee in the morning, me reading bedtime stories to Ethan. Trust grew in tiny increments, fragile but real. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights Jess would wake in tears, haunted by guilt. Other times I'd find myself staring at her, wondering if I could ever fully let go of the past. Then the day came when we finally told Ethan about the baby. His eyes lit up with wonder, and he hugged Jess's belly, whispering, "Hi, baby." It was a moment of pure joy, a reminder of why we fought so hard. But as our family began to heal, shadows from the past still lurked. One afternoon while I was at work, Jess received a mysterious call. The voice was disguised but cold. "You think it's over? It's never over, Matthews." She hung up, her face pale. I came home to find her trembling. "They're still watching," she whispered. "They want us to know they're here." Fear tightened its grip once more. We talked late into the night, planning our next steps. We had to be vigilant, but not let fear control us. "I won't let them steal our future," I vowed. Jess nodded. "Neither will I." Life moved forward, slowly but surely. The baby arrived on a rainy April morning, a beautiful, healthy girl we named Grace. Holding her in my arms, tears streaming down my face, I felt a profound sense of hope. We had survived the darkest storm and found light again. Years later, as I watched Ethan and Grace play in the yard, I realized something vital. Our family wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Scarred, yes, but stronger for the battles fought. Jess and I had crossed the darkest valleys together. The wounds would always be there, but so would our commitment to each other, to love, to forgive, and most importantly, to never give up. Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or flawless moments. It's about choosing each other every day, despite the pain and fear. It's about building new beginnings from old shadows. And that's exactly what we did. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Wishing you all the best.